What up, College Hoops Coast to Coast? We are back in this thing. I had a blast with my great friend, Kevin Sweeney. He came out to Mountain West Country, and we did some games together. So he's got to get back to work. So it's just me today for a little bit. But we have one of the best mid-major programs in the country that is not being talked about enough. They had a phenomenal player last year, and they got a ton of buzz. But they have the best start in school history. They're 19-3. Hopefully I have that correct. That's what I have. Coach can correct me when he comes in. 19-3, and Ohio men's basketball is playing at a high level. So we have Coach Kyle Barlow that's going to join us today to tell us a little bit of the inside. Coach, what up, man?
Hey, what's up? Thanks for having me, man. And yeah, 19-3, you're right. Best start in school history so far, which at a history-rich basketball school like Ohio is, man, that's really, really saying something. So really proud of our guys, and really excited to be on today too. I appreciate you having me.
No, it's dope to have you on, man. Appreciate you taking the time. Tell us about this best start in school history. We'll obviously talk about Jason Preston. We'll talk about them all at once. So let's talk about Jason Preston first. That story and what that did for the program, and obviously signing that young man and him doing things in the NBA. And then now how that leads into you guys riding that momentum all the way to now having the best start in school history.
Yeah, and Jay was such a unique guy. And, if you're not familiar with the story, I'll go into it a little bit, but you can really dive deep on Twitter and multiple platforms. But, averaged 2 points a game as a senior in high school. Mom died of breast cancer as a junior in high school. Dad wasn't in the picture. Basically, homeless, living with, cousins, aunts, uncles, things like that. Goes to prep because he plays in one AAU tournament in the summer after his senior year, just because he wanted to fill in for somebody he wanted to play. Prep schools take interest, goes to Believe Prep, kind of on the BC team for the entire year, and then posts his highlights. And previous Ohio saw the highlights in the spring, and took a chance on him. And when we got the job after his freshman year, we got the leading scorer decided to transfer, who was point guard. And then, after doing one or two individual workouts with him, I said, "Holy cow, we got a good one here." And just such an unselfish kid, and a kid you love to coach because he loves the game. I told him, we'd watch scouting clips before every game, which not a lot of guys really do, on their own. And he was one of those rare guys who could take everything he saw from film and put it in the game, because he was such a high IQ player. And the other thing about Jay is, like, that's different, I think, from most guys right now, and you can confirm too, Brian, but it's like he watched the game of basketball. He watched NBA every night. He watched college every night, where I feel like that's getting more and more rare for guys actually watching full games rather than the highlights, or just watching basketball in their spare time at all.
No, I think you're spot on. I think this generation's a little different, Coach. I think you probably know that. You can speak to it as much as I can, but watching basketball and really diving into it is a rare thing. And if you have ability and have that work ethic to kind of do the extra, I mean, as much as we all see, right, like Kobe Bryant and Peyton Manning and LeBron and Tom Brady and the behind the scenes of what they do, you would almost think players would gravitate more towards that, but sometimes it's just not in them. Talk about this momentum now. Talk about the best record in school start, best start to school history, and then talk about this team and what makes this team so good so far.
Yeah, and I think you alluded to it a little bit in the opening too, but it's like I felt like last year we had JP, who was such a great story, got a lot of buzz with that, but this year we're a little more blue collar, and we're winning games in a lot of different ways. Gritty, not pretty. Some games we hit 12 threes. Some games we grind it out to a 5-10 point victory. Defensively, I think our defense this year is improved immensely, and having Jason Carter come back as a 6-year senior helps. And bro, you know how it is. You start a 6-year senior, a 5th-year senior, 2 juniors, and a sophomore, and with a 5th-year senior coming off the bench, like your defense is going to get better. And like, we like to take, sometimes, people give credit to the coaches, but if you have all that experience, man, you're naturally going to be better defensively. So we've seen that take a huge jump, and credit to our assistant coach, Lamar Thornton, who runs the defense, and Lee Martin, who does matchups for that. And and a lot of people this summer in the league, after, Jason Preston went to the NBA, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, they're going to take a big dip, but guys in our league is like, shoot, you guys got a good backup in Mark Sears. Like he could be a starter on anyone in the league, and you know, and he's taking a huge jump into his sophomore year as well. And you know, a player of the year contender in this league, been player of the week 4 to 5 times. So you know, I think that's kind of been the momentum. That's kind of been the story this year. Is we're not as flashy. You know, we don't have a prototypical NBA point guard, a 6'5" point guard with a great story, but we have great kids who are locked into winning, and that's all they care about.
Yeah, that's all that matters, man. That's all that really matters. Most people don't know as much about your conference. Talk a little bit about the conference. We'll next go to your head coach, a little bit about him and what
Yeah.
makes him great. But let's talk about the league because, you know, again, everybody's in different parts of the country. I think that a lot of mid-major leagues kind of go under the radar. So you're 19-3. People may not appreciate as much because they're not appreciating the league. Talk about a little bit about this league.
Yeah, it's you know, it's one of those leagues where you got to grind it out every night. There's no game on your schedule that's like, phew, all right, looks like we can play some backups this game. You never go in thinking that. And a great example is this past Saturday we played Western Michigan, who you know started the league 0-10. But you know they were up 15-7 after the first media dogfight. We were up 1 at half, and it's just the character of the league, the mentality of the guys, and you know really credit to the coaching as well. You know, you look at Coach Bowles, who I know we said we'll talk about in a second, but you look, you know, the other team that's up there is Todd Kowalczyk at Toledo, who I worked for, who's an extremely great coach, and then you got John Gross at Akron. You know, you could go down the line, Rob Senderoff at Kent State, a lot of guys who are proven winners. So I think the coaching is strong, the talent is strong in this league, and sometimes might not get credit for it, but now you're looking at, you know, we had an NBA prospect last year, a guy drafted 33rd overall from Ohio. You got multiple NBA prospects in the league right now. You look at Mark Sears here, our point guard, then Ryan Rollins, both are sophomores at Toledo. So a really, really underrated league in terms of talent, but a very well coached league.
Yeah, I think as we talk about well coached, talk about Coach Bowles. He got more recognition last year with having Preston, and people talked about you guys more. But let's talk about Coach and kind of what makes him special, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, I mean, true player and huge relationship guy. He relates with the players better than any coach I've ever been around or ever worked for. And the guys want to play hard for him and for us, which is, it's great. And he's a big, Thad Matta disciple from Ohio State. Worked there for 9 years, I believe. Had a lot of success. Went and coached Stony Brook. As a head coach, took a chance out there and had a lot of success that propelled him to get the Ohio job. And this is his alma mater, so he loves this place. And he's like, he can be like the homecoming king sometimes when he's walking around on Court Street or after the game because he's so popular. People love him here, and his energy is just infectious. And I heard long ago about two people who can't have a bad day at practice, and that's your best player and your head coach. And he truly never has a bad day. And he is just brings the energy, brings the juice, brings the intensity every day, every game, every film session, everything. And he's a guy who watches film one-on-one individually with the guys as well, where a lot of coaches would have the assistants do that and delegate that, and he'll watch film with our starting forward, our starting point guard, one-on-one with them. And I think that goes a long way with trust and building relationships with those guys, so that when you're in the heat of battle, there's a different level of communication that goes on.
No doubt, no doubt. Tell us a little bit about your story, Coach. Obviously you're there and having great success. Sometimes people think assistant coaches' jobs and their roles are easy, and how they got there is like, oh, he just knew the coach. It's like most guys have a pretty grind-orientated story. So tell us a little bit about your story, if you don't mind.
Yeah, in a nutshell. So was a player at Concordia University, an NAI school, coached there for 2 years afterwards, and then got a big break and caught on as a graduate assistant at Michigan from 2012 to 2014 with John Beeline, the Trey Burke years, and Stauskas, Karis LeVert years. So got really lucky because I had nothing to do with the success there, but I was trying to be a sponge and absorb everything. And So after the 2 years as a GA, Coach Kowalczyk at Toledo, who I mentioned earlier, hired me as a director of ops there. Promoted me to assistant coach for 3 years there. And then came down to Ohio after spending 5 total years at Toledo. Came down to Ohio when Coach Bowles got the job, and it was kind of connection. Lamar Thornton, who runs our defense here, as I mentioned, he was a GA for us at Toledo, and he was on Coach Bowles' staff at Stony Brook. So when they got the job at Ohio, I had that relationship with Lamar, not really with Coach Bowles as much, but he took a chance on me, and it was one of those deals. It's always weird going in conference, as but Ohio is such a basketball school and basketball rich. Like, we lead the attendance year. Attendance is through the roof right now because we're good. But even before we got here, they finished in last place, they still led the league in attendance, which is amazing. One of the few schools in Ohio that are truly basketball schools in such a football crazy state, and especially in the Midwest. So, really blessed to be here and working with Coach Bowles in year 3 here. And, love the belief in me, but it's all about luck and timing, right? You can, preparation, or luck is when preparation meets opportunity. So you got to prepare for that. But, I've been very blessed, and I've moved south every move I've made so far. So I figure by retirement, I'm going to be in Florida in that warm weather.
Hey, that wouldn't be all bad, Coach. That wouldn't be all bad. So we normally ask a funny story before you go. If you have one, now people love Jason Preston. So if you have a good Jason Preston story, it doesn't have to be funny. And then you add a funny story too. So a good Jason Preston story, and then just a funny story in general. And then we'll let you get back to winning all these games and prepare for win number 20.
Appreciate it. Yeah. So JP, it's during the pandemic, in the summer when we're kind of unsure, nobody was on campus. It was like, hey, keep your circle a dot, as in, only hang out with teammates. Don't be going around. We don't need to be getting COVID. Don't hang out, pool parties, whatever. Try and limit who you're hanging out with. So we would have the guys over at my house, because I got a smoker during the pandemic. So I love smoking brisket, ribs. I kind of got into it because, I didn't know what to do with myself with no recruiting and anything in the spring and summer that year. So I kind of got into it. But Jason Preston loved playing chess. And he was a dominant chess player, probably the best in our team, best in our program.
That says a lot about his IQ right there.
Man, it does it. Like strategy, IQ, seeing the next play, really just thinking. He's such a deep thinker. But one of our coaches, Lee Martin, got hired in the pandemic, and he came from Hargrave, where he had loads of talent, top 100 players, NBA players. So he came from there, and now is at Ohio with us. But after one day, me and were playing chess, he beat me every time, man. I swear, he beat me every time. It drove me nuts, but because I consider myself a decent chess player. But afterwards, the guys leave the house, and it's just me and Coach Martin, Lee, and his wife and my wife, and he's like, just don't get used to this. That might be the only player in the country who's a NBA prospect who wants to hang out at assistant coach's house and play chess. Like, this isn't real life, man.
I don't say that doesn't happen very often.
Right. Right. So it was just funny. We would play multiple games with him. He was a big gamer. Him and his roommates played Catan. I played a few times with them as well. But, one of my favorite stories with, JP, and it just goes to show you, basketball wise, by the MAC tournament and the NCAA tournament. Well, let me back up. So Tom Izzo always says, if you're not a player-led team in March, then you're not going to go anywhere. And by the MAC tournament and the NCAA tournament, like Jason Preston, Ben Vanderplas were basically doing the scouts, and they were doing the matchups because, we got our matchup against Virginia, and Jason, he goes to our GA, says, can I get the last 5 Virginia games? Yeah, for sure. So he comes to film the next morning. Assistant's been grinding all night. Head coach has been grinding. You're familiar with that grind of a quick turnaround. And so Jason had already watched all 5 games, said, no, I don't like this matchup. I want this matchup here. And then, hey, on this action, let's do this. Like, and he would be moving people in shoot around. He's like, stop. You need to be in this gap. And he'd move them over. Like, when we see this play, you need to be in this gap. And it was like, great, man. What am I here? Hey, I'm just here to guide you, bro.
Right.
And that really shows you the ownership. And it's so true, that Izzo quote, man.
Yeah, player-led teams are always the best teams, and definitely he's right on. If you're not there by March, you probably don't have much of a chance because the season's about to be over. You probably won't make it to March very long.
Yeah.
I'll ask one more, Coach. What is it about the Ohio program that you would want more people to know? Again, nationally, you don't necessarily get always as much coverage as any mid-major. You get local and sometimes regional. You get national when you make the tournament, of course, when you guys did. So you've had that. But what's something you want people to know about the program or about the staff or about whatever that maybe they don't know?
I just think if you have a chance to tune in, and we'll be on some national TV games coming up too with CBS Sports Network and ESPNU, is just look at the versatility. I think that we're probably one of the most versatile teams that I've ever been around, and probably up there in the country. Like, we can win games in multiple ways. We have 2 back-to-the-basket post threats in Jason Carter, Ben Vanderplas, an elite basket scorer in Mark Shears, an elite point guard in him. And, we can win in different ways. We can switch ball screens. We can, disrupt. We can hard heads. In a game by game, it changes. So the versatility of this team is really fun, and it's fun to coach. Like, the other thing, as you know, too, it's like if all you can have to do is really coach X's and O's at this time of year and with a team, because you have a team that's so bought into winning and so bought to being teammates of each other and sharing the ball. So if you're worrying about X's and O's as a coach at this time, instead of, jealousy issues, locker room issues, things like that, then it turns really fun. And it's a credit to those guys because, that's what we're doing, and they're having a lot of fun doing it. And so are we as coaches.
No doubt. No doubt. I love that. Well, Coach, glad to have you, and congrats on the season. Best start in school history. That's always a big deal. 19-3. Anytime you can hit the 20 mark, that always matters. So you're already hitting the 20 mark, and it's not even March. So that's a beautiful thing. So best of luck the rest of the way, and we're rooting for you. And hopefully we can see you dancing in March yet again, Coach.
I appreciate it. Anytime you want to chat, man, I love this. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Kyle.